Thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm Jesky. I'm Senior Cloud Architect for Pinnacle Technology Partners. We're a Norwood-based company, been open since about 2009, about 40 employees, location here in Norwood, as well as a network operations center in the Cincinnati area and a security operations center based out of Dallas. So I'm here today to take you through a little bit of what it means to be working with Amazon and how they operate their security model. So I'll take you through a little bit of what you own at first and where your responsibilities lie, take you through some of the mistakes that we commonly see through a lot of our customers, and then take you through a little bit of how do you justify the cost and training. As Mike, if you were here earlier, Mike pointed out that training is so important to really be successful inside of Amazon. So how do you go to explain to your business to make sure that you get the appropriate dollars to make your cloud migration successful? So again, Pinnacle Technologies, Norwood, Massachusetts. So we're going to take you through the shared responsibility model. This is something that you hear kicked around quite a bit inside of Amazon, and as a lot of their marketing slides is immediately part of their training if you go through any of their certifications, to really start to drive in where you need to own inside of your deployment. But I find that a lot of people still have some struggle with this, so I'll take you through kind of what we see. So when you hear infrastructure as a service and the model of shared responsibility, where does Amazon truly draw the line? And if you get these decks afterwards, I have links in all the slides to bring you to some great resources that will help you dive into this a little bit more. But when somebody goes out and says, we're going to deploy a new database, just start off with something as simple as that. And all the infrastructure that goes along with deploying that, sure, it's a click. It's that nasty little blue launch button that every CFO hates. You click that and you just think, oh, you've got everything covered. There's a safety net there. Amazon makes you feel really, really comfortable about this. But I really suggest that everybody kind of get their head around what this slide framework is, and where your application is being deployed and what other resources still need to be touched on the way down to the Amazon's baseline of where they start to own the security aspect of things. So you start thinking about, sure, they're covering your back-end compute, they're locking down the instances there, they're making sure that the hard drives are being shredded on the way out the door, that other customers aren't accessing any of your storage. Those are the things that you come to know and trust. But when you start to do these deployments, you find out, oh, there's how about your snapshots, where your snapshots are lying? Are those buckets locked down appropriately? So understanding where you lie in the shared responsibility role, specifically in the SaaS side of things, becomes very important. Now, once you've got your head around what it means to be out there running an application successfully, having that security lockdown, your next area that we find a lot of our customers struggling with is IAM. And so your access controls, your keys to the kingdom, and how you go about maintaining that. I'll mention later on here, Uber was popped because somebody accidentally posted their credentials to a GitHub bucket. So these are pretty common things, and understanding how important it is to have those tight controls around your password policy. I know nobody likes to have ridiculously long passwords and multi-factor authentication when you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to fight some fire, but understanding that Amazon's not going to protect you from those things. Making sure you have strong controls around IAM, that you have strong password policies, can be very, very important. Now that's an area that, like I said, Amazon's not going to help you with. That they'll give you all the tools to implement those strong controls, but you need to be in there making the hard adjustments to the accounts. Again, just talking about the applications a little bit more, because this is really where we see the struggle. When you start to look at the networking components of it and how you're integrating with your application. So let's say you were going out and deploying just a general EC2 instance, and your compute's out there. You've got a lockdown. You've got encrypted drives. You've got secure access to the machine. You've got appropriate policies applied to that machine. You're locking down your IAM privileges as well. But when you go out and roll out that resource, making sure that your firewall configurations really start to get into play with when you're doing that deployment. Additionally, even things of running the software you're running on that EC2 instance, Amazon doesn't help you out with any of those aspects. So if you were on a MySQL instance and you grant full network access from anywhere in the world, they're not going to help you with that. So just really start to understand where Amazon's drawing the line. So know your role, understand your authentication and authorization policies with Amazon, and learn them very, very well. They are going to be the best way to secure your environment, and make sure that your applications are clearly locked down. So that's a very high level, speedy, but hopefully focused explanation of the shared security model. So the common mistakes that we see with our customers, I'm sure you can imagine, we also are a Cisco network partner. So we deal a lot with customers that are coming on board with us from the network standpoint of view, and starting to stand up their infrastructure for migration into the cloud. So network security permissions, how are you going to go about connecting to the internet? That's where we start talking to our customers. Internet gateway, and what does it mean to secure the internet gateway? Well, if you choose the internet gateway method, these are just the few areas I found fairly quickly last night that you would have to be maintaining on a daily basis to make sure that, or possibly daily basis, to make sure that your application and the network access to your environments are very secure. I know that it seems very easy. Let me just go out there and open up my single public IP address. Let me allow my developer to connect in from home. But what happens when that developer says, oh, this instance is only going to be out there for a couple of hours. I can leave it open to the public, and then they go to sleep. And you wake up the next day and you find out that there's a bot on that machine, and your environment is hacked. So the internet gateway is not something that we necessarily recommend. We understand that there are appropriate times to go out there and use the internet gateway method for allowing resources to be accessed inside of Amazon, but it's a pretty big roll of the dice for your environment. An older setup is the EC2 Classic link. I'm not going to get too much into this. Hopefully you're not using it, and you never will. VPC endpoints. This is really what you're going to start to see when you're going to stand up a solid VPN gateway into your environment. So this is our recommended method. It is by far the most cost-effective method to get into your environment. I'm sure that you already have some kind of remote access environment at your office, or fairly simple to set up that kind of connectivity from your office or from home connections. VPC endpoint is, you can do this a few different ways. We like to go and deploy either like Cisco Meraki, which is great if you already have a Meraki environment installed in your environment. The VPC gateway will also interact with this. So something that you really want to focus your environment towards, and usually is a fairly straightforward way of going and standing up your environment. VPC peering, we'll get into why this one's a little more important. Some changes finally happened here in the last 6 or so months, I believe. You can now do inter-region VPC peering. So if you had previously an environment, this is something we see pretty common in our customer base, that prior Amazon did not allow you to do VPC to VPC peering. So they were having some kind of amalgamation of open Swan VPN servers or Meraki DMVPN, or just open internet gateway connections configured between their environments. VPC peering now allows you to do inter-region VPN. Use it often, especially use it when you're doing multi-accounts. Very, very helpful in that area. AWS Direct Connect, by far the most secure way and most expensive way to go about peering with Amazon. This is something that you're going to see mainly into the data center. There is a short list, but you can start to work with an SDN provider to help establish a wider area network and link into AWS Direct Connect there. Something that by far the most secure way of going about your environment. However, most cost-effective, and also possibly having some region-locked area. But this is a product that's slowly coming up on the market now. It's third-party Direct Connect. So what a third-party Direct Connect, not as secure, by far an easier implementation for your environment than maybe a full VPN mesh would be between all of your offices and all your regions. The third-party Direct Connect providers are now allowing you to just get onto their SDN and connect out into Amazon through a much cheaper shared model. So if you're looking for direct connect speeds and security and ease of implementation to achieve those security goals, you might want to be looking at a third-party direct connect tool. User permissions. I was kind of harping on this in the shared security model. Making sure that you have those strong controls around the access to your environment, making sure that your users understand the password rotations are important, that don't post your credentials to GitHub. It's always a nice thing to not do. Making sure that your users truly understand what this means, because you're removing so many more controls that you would normally have inside of your environment. So if you're making the right choices in your networking environment and locking down and making sure there's security there, yes, you're going to contain all the attack vectors that a hacker would have on your environment. However, those credentials now are the most direct way to get into your environment. So maybe they're no longer going after those attack vectors of let's go in and try to break in through their network. They're saying let's go in and try to social engineer our way in or find some kind of API level access into your environment. That is now the easiest attack vector for an environment that has a strong network environment, as hopefully you have done from the previous slide. Everyone and everything gets an account. This has been the bane of every IT person's existence since the dawn of authentication. Making sure that not only your users have accounts across all of your environments, but also making sure that your services have accounts and roles and policies across all your environments. Yes, it can be a pain to maintain those things, but this is why we have password managers like 1Pass or Passbolt or any of the other litany of tools that we already have out there. The number of times that I've gotten a call from a customer at 3 o'clock in the morning saying, they're saying my site's down, but it's working fine for me. And I log in and say, oh, well, you accidentally did a code deployment to your environment and you're pointing your production environment at your development environment. Oh, but I logged in just fine. Yes, because you set your password the same across all 3 environments. So even little things like that, being able to make sure your users understand that you should not be using the same password across all your environments. They have unique accounts across all their environments, and all your service accounts too. Especially with service accounts that go around and live out there for a very long time. This is Amazon's best practice. They're helping you in that well-architected model, pushing you towards these types of choices, saying, let's make sure that our accounts are locked down and they're unique across all of our environments. Take the least privilege approach. Again, this is another strong push from the Amazon's well-architected model. Those service accounts, why the heck should they need to be able to stand up a, what's the new instance? I think it's the I16T, new $260,000 a year EC2 instance. You should not have a service account be able to go out and create an account, create a new instance along those sides. Make sure that you're taking those accounts, you're locking them down as tightly as you possibly can. And again, strong password policy, MFA. If you're not doing MFA, well, it's your fault. Knowing your trusted resources. So now you've with the well-architected model and the security model that we're pushing Amazon's pushing everybody towards, you end up with a lot of resources. Again, if you hear from Mike's talk earlier, he mentioned that they've acquired a lot of new accounts due to acquisition. So not only just a new product, you're getting new products with that, different services that the previous organizations chose to run. But you're also, you're getting those environments, those applications, and you're rolling them all into one area. It's a lot of things to start to analyze and trust. So understanding all of your environment as best you can, it's very, very important. With all those accounts, actually the landing zone architecture is part of what Amazon's pushing you over towards with the well-architected model. What they're trying to get you to understand now is that you could go out there and dump everything into one account and hope that you're able to keep the policies and controls across that account architected appropriately. What the landing zone architecture helps you start to achieve is you're having an account, essentially account per service. So you're going to have an account for one of your applications or one of the roles inside of your organization. And you're going to have different deployments for each one of those. Your users are contained into there. That way you're achieving that ability of, that goal of least privilege. If you know that your HR team only needs access to HR resources, with the well-architected model and the Amazon landing zone architecture, you only put them into that VPC that has HR resources on it. And if they're a production account, they only go into the VPC that has HR resources on it. That's only production. Now, if that single account were to be compromised in any way, you know you're going to be contained into only being able to execute inside of that area. It's a little bit of a shift from maybe what we saw 5 or 8 years ago, I guess, in the Amazon world. Previously, it was a big push of keep it all in a single account, make it nice and easily managed. It's kind of what a lot of people are used to in the physical infrastructure world. That's a big shift that you're going to have to make. It makes it feel like, air quotes feel like, you have a whole bunch of physical data centers out there. But the reality is switching roles inside of your account, if you have the privileges granted to you, is a really straightforward thing to be able to do. So this is why Amazon now is doing this, and there are scripts out there that go up and just set this thing up for you. It's really awesome. If you haven't looked into Landing Zone, highly recommend it. It's a great pairing with the well-architected model. Just a quick little thing on how it makes it so much easier. There's a VPC that essentially has an account vending machine. Those resources go out and rapidly provision accounts for you. So you can go and have your CloudFormation templates be linked up to your vending machine and have accounts automatically created on new deployments if you're going out and spinning up a new environment. And again, helps lock down the user accesses as I explained in that HR model. So you've got a lot of environments out there. You've been following the well-architected model. You've got a landing zone style infrastructure deployed. You've got a lot of accounts, every service, every user. There's just a lot to manage out there. Things start to show up, like those. It's a MT16, I think, is the instance. Now, what are the concerns about this? Well, even though you may have things locked down, let's go back to that developer that was 3 o'clock in the morning, decides, oh, I'm going to go out. I need some test data, but I don't know where they put the test data, so I'm just going to go snap off a couple terabytes of production credit card data and just throw that into this development instance and see where, I'll just run my test job against that. And I'll spin it up on this ridiculously large $200,000 a year instance, and I'll fall asleep. So when that resource gets left behind, you've now got production data out there, you now have a cost issue as well. You also have users that aren't being maintained. Possibly they just went on there and threw a generic account on the machine. Possibly they left the machine open to the public internet, and again, that forgotten data. And obviously the operating costs of it as well. So when we go into a customer, we bring tools in with us. There is a great tool called Trusted Advisor that does make some security recommendations for your environment. I believe they're up to a whopping 58 checks or so at this point, and when you take away the costs and the architecture checks. So you've got about 58 security checks that are happening on your environment to make sure you're locked down. But then you look at something like Cloud Health or Cloud Checker. Cloud Checker is bringing in something like 700 security checks and audit checks as well. So while yes, Amazon is out there providing you good information about some pretty generic stuff, they don't even still tell you when you've got an S3 bucket. Really, it doesn't come up and really slap you in the face and say don't do that. Those types of checks aren't happening. Bringing in a third-party tool to get those kind of deep checks is going to be could be a real help for your environment. If you have a great security team and you have great review of your CloudFormation templates and you're using configuration management software tools, yes, you might possibly be able to get away with not having to go and look at those checks. But look at the ones that Amazon provides you. They are absolutely helpful, but then just know you can go even deeper pretty easily. So monitoring and notifications. This is kind of it's one that seems like it's a no-brainer, but I can't tell you the number of times that introduce customers to things like Trusted Advisor and say, there are alerts there. There are the tools. There's CloudWatch, there's CloudTrail. There's all of these tools that Amazon's providing you. But why aren't you looking at them? Oh, because they go to an intern's email box that left here 4 years ago. So look at CloudTrail. CloudTrail is going to give you that audit, the ability to go back and audit what happened on your environment. Again, this is a big push inside of the well-architected model. They expect that all of your services and all of your deployments are being architected with this tool being deployed in there. CloudWatch, again, now you're going to be able to have the monitoring and metrics along those lines. And this is another thing where Amazon does a really good job at giving you the ability to go back and audit and look at trends. but it's quite honestly not always the best. There are some really strong tools out there like Datadog and Sumo Logic, a few others that it could absolutely help you improve on these things. Splunk even, now that it's actually affordable, I kind of recommend it now. There are tools out there that can help you improve on these, that will take data out of here and help you massage it in a new way. Amazon's really good at giving you that security data. They're not always really good at telling you how to go about acting on that data. So either you have to have a team that really has a strong subject matter expert on your team that understands the application you have deployed, or you're using a third-party tool to go out there and help analyze that analyze that data and make sure that you're acting on it appropriately. So those are third-party tools. I'm going to look at that slide, not that one, because I seem to be a slide behind. So the consequences to the business. So let's say you've gone out there, you've convinced your organization to move into the cloud. You've met with your TAM, possibly you found a consulting partner. You've met with your Amazon team to understand and build out a great model. You've gone through the well-architected framework. You've checked all the boxes. You've gone out there and you put your development Amazon landing zone infrastructure out there. But why are you doing all this? How do you get that money to finish off the project and really prove that yes, this is going to be successful? Well, the first thing I would tell them is, we've gone up by 6.4% of bringing us to about a $3.86 million per breach cost for an organization at this point. That's what we're looking at. So I would just start off with that. If you want to make sure that people are going in there and allowing you to go out and flesh out this infrastructure and to continue to build it in that pattern, because we all know what happens. When you go and you prove something out in development, you've spent hours and weeks, months even, making sure that that thing is a pristine implementation of what you want. And you don't want to see that thing get degraded. You don't want to see a poor implementation of that, trying to keep my language nice there. You're trying to make sure that you're continuing on that quality of implementation. So so if you want to make sure that the team's doing that, your management team does that, get those resources in because it can cost them a lot of money. And if they need to have logos that help prove why this is so important to keep that pattern going of that well-architected framework throughout your entire organization, show them any one of these logos and realize that they're all publicly traded companies that have had at least at least a $50 million breach. So not too hard. So what are the other points that you can use to help focus your management team on where to head? You're going to now have the time. If you have a strong implementation where you're having the tools in place, you're having easy audit checks, digests of information that are coming into your email box or communicated to you in some manner, instead of absolute, stream of consciousness coming out of CloudTrail. You'll have more time to focus on your product. More time to focus on your product. Your current customers are going to be happier. Your future customers are going to be happier. And and on that slide too, the previous slide, please make sure you pick those up because there's a lot of deep links in there to help explain why some of those customers were popped. As I mentioned, Uber, they were accessed. They had an enormous breach because somebody had posted to GitHub, S3 buckets. My very first customer I went into with Pinnacle, we were looking at their environment. We found their production database open to production RDS database open to the public. So there are a bunch of links in there to help you kind of reinforce how to go about getting your management team to fund you to do this appropriately. So that's pretty much all I had. It went way faster than I thought. Sorry about that. Do we have any questions? Any specific areas?
Well, I mean, in the old days when we first started firewalls, we basically had two choices: either paranoid or trusting. And it seems to me that with the cloud environments, that they're automatically going to trusting.
Yeah.
Would it be better if they started out with paranoid?
So I wholly. Yes, the question is it better to start off with a level of paranoia on your firewall rule sets than to be in a trusted environment? Now, there's a level of expectation from that well-architected framework. Amazon really, if you haven't heard it, I've probably said it 25 times already because they've ingrained it in me, that the goal is that once you have the existing perimeter set up for you, then you should be fairly safe and contained in that environment. So when you go through the landing zone architecture, you're having this, you've got your main accounts where you're connecting in through, then you've got your sub account for the resource, and then you've got environments inside of there, dev stage, prod, that if you were to go and make an action inside of that environment, you're only going to ever hurt that environment. So at least they're going through some kind of level of containment. So I think that's kind of how they've come up with this idea of, as long as we protect that perimeter and you continue to follow that pattern, we can go towards that trusted side of things. Well, I agree. I'm legacy infrastructure guy. I've been doing this thing since about '95, and it's I'm the same way, that everything needs to be trust but verify across all the choices. However, you can go through and set policies that a user could not be allowed to take those actions, to have those kind of things set up. And those third-party tools, as I mentioned CloudCheckr earlier, or Dome 9, there are tools out there that will monitor your CloudTrail and make sure that if an S3 bucket is turned on, it will immediately go and squash it. It will go shut it down for you. So there are the controls in there, and Amazon kind of expects you to have those controls. They want to trust the developer out there to do the right thing and be able to iterate at a rapid pace. So it's kind of where those things get a little bit hamstrung.
But in your previous slide, you said, why is the internet gateway not secure?
It's just living a little dangerously. That's I guess I wouldn't make the choice to allow all of my instances and all my resources to only have one security group, or more likely than not, a lot of new security groups. As you go through, let's take the EC2 launch control panel for example. Unless you went through and chose, set me up with an existing security group for this instance, it's going to go through the wizard and create a new one for you. And now you're dealing with a lot of different security groups across many different instances. Very tough to link back. Well, not super tough, but very time consuming to go back and link. I have this instance, what security group, what rules. When in an ideal situation, maybe you've got it so that you've got 100 instances, one security group. But what we often see is you've got 100 instances with 150 security groups. So running that through just the internet gateway can be a little different. And also IP addresses change. If you're looking to connect from your home, hopefully you have a static IP address at your office and you can trust that. However, those things do change, and when they change, it can cause some serious problems.
Are you complaining internet gateway with a publicly accessible IP address?
Yes.
It's not necessarily the same.
Yes, this was the.
Your machines can't get out without an internet.
Yes, I understand.
You kind of have to have it.
It was the most straightforward way I could explain that.
Cool.
Yep. Yep. No, appreciate it. Appreciate the follow-up. Is anybody else? Yeah.
When I first got started with the cloud back in 2015, I was actually starting out with Azure, and one of the problems is that a lot of the customers, they would hear that the marketing, the salesperson would say, "Oh yeah, we have a secure network," and so the assumption was whatever you put onto their network was not secure, and then later on, 6 months in, we're told, "Oh, that's not true. Yes, we're protecting our own end, but we're not protecting your network." And so I think needs to be sort of a disclosure to say, okay, you need to provide, your level of network design infrastructure and plan that from the beginning.
Absolutely. So the question statements is that the cloud providers are out there saying that they have a very secure network. They absolutely do. I mean, we have not seen any, or at least there are no public breaches that I'm aware of on GCP, Azure, or Amazon, where people have gotten access to the Zen hypervisor or whatever backend they're using. So yes, they are extremely secure up to this point. But you're absolutely right. When you may have the capability to deploy a very secure network on top of theirs, but unless you have the controls in place, you're also completely capable of making a very insecure network. It's not going to hurt them, but it sure as heck could hurt you. Right? Yeah.
So in Azure, you can also specify like start or Microsoft.com.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something equivalent you can do like that on the VPC or like whitelist stuff?
To go by host name?
Yeah.
I don't believe you can. No. Yeah, Azure allows you to do it by domain name.
Yes.
All right. Well, give Azure a little time. I might have to make a correction on my secure network statement. Yeah, there's no DNS name. Yeah, yeah. No, I can't think of any way to do it. I mean, you might be able to have some Lambda function run and update your security groups for you, but not recommended. Don't do that.
Letting it know about a group of systems it stood up, so you can say like,
Well,
as
it's like
systems-
Office 365, right? So if you have like
Oh, that's a, yeah.
a situation where you want to say that like start off, I don't know.
Yeah, I think Office 365 might, I think is qualify as kind of a little bit different of a deployment. It's more, you know, Office may need some specific configurations. I'm not an O365 expert by any means, so.
No, that's what I'm trying to say is like you might have subdomains.
Yep.
And I want to basically say, hey, these all subdomains.
Yeah, no, you could make that configuration inside of Amazon with a, you know, third-party Lambda function there, but I wouldn't recommend. No, not that I'm aware of. Sir.
You mentioned VPC here.
Yep.
Which is awesome if I would do that.
I know.
But do you know Exchange, like you couldn't route across VPCs to another, so I couldn't go like VPC A is peer to B is peer to C. I couldn't get from A to C.
By going through, that's correct. Yeah, because the BGP did not establish in that manner.
That's still the case.
As far as I'm aware,
I think that's it.
yeah, it's still the case. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, I can play network games in B
Yes.
to route traffic, but natively within the.
I have not heard anything along those lines, and it sounds like we've got some other folks agreeing it's not happening yet.
So you're saying basically go from A to B to C.
You can't send traffic. So if B is in the middle of A and C, you can't send traffic directly from A to C.
Yeah.
You can try to, but the
Yeah.
network will drop.
So A, B, and C are separate entities.
Yes.
Yeah.
And A is peer to B, and B is peer to C. You cannot go right from A to C.
Yeah, there's no automatic trust between A and C at that point because you're only A trusts B, B trusts C, but an automatic configuration between A and C does not exist.
So there are any tools that do the audit of the security architecture of environment and can come up with what are the areas that we need to?
Dome 9, Cloud Checker are two good tools to go out there and analyze your environment. There's another great tool called Turbot that can do a network diagram for you to kind of get your head around where everything is deployed. But I would say Dome 9, Cloud Checker are probably the two tools I would start with as just by far the easiest entry into the environment. You just give it a key and click on stand up a stack and put the AR in, and there you're good to go. It's very, very straightforward. So I would say that those two tools are the ones I would start with, and then to get your head around what your architecture looks like, I would use Turbot.
Can I make
Yeah, go ahead.
affiliation with a company? I would use it, but talk to them, check out ThreatStack.
So ThreatStack is purely a host-based tool.
It does it differently, but
Yeah.
it's still a cool tool.
Yeah, Sam Bisbee is a good buddy of mine, so it's a. ThreatStack is a host-based intrusion prevention, more intrusion detection tool. They do have some capabilities in there to stop an attack from happening, but that's software that you load onto your Kubernetes or EC2 instances, your containers or EC2 instances, and it will look for patterns. It's pretty neat. It'll do things like if I log in, I'm a PSAUX dub person. It's my Solaris days. I'm sorry. And somebody else can go in and do it, PSEF, and it will kick them out because it knows that I don't usually ever type that command. So but that's purely a host-based tool. It's really great. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and make sure you guys get a copy of the deck.
Thanks.
Thanks.